Welcome to the 14th video with me. I'm Positive Pussy. Today I'm getting political, and that is a statement and a disclaimer because I try not to get too political, but I believe in equality, so obviously that's my bias. But before I get into it, if you want to stay up to date with my videos, subscribe to my YouTube, Positive Pussy, follow me on Twitter @PositivePuss, and check out my website. It's positivepussy.live. It's in the description of this video. And yeah, so if you go on the website, there's amazing links and there's awesome resources for all of the videos. So yeah. Okay, so let's jump in. I wanted to get started right away because I hope it's not going to be too long. I don't think it was too long. I did a lot of research. I got really sucked into researching, especially when it's like politics and laws. I just click on every link I see, and then one link leads to 5 more. It's just a rabbit hole for me. But anyway, a great place for resources that you guys can go to on laws, politics, and goings on in the world. The Human Rights Watch, I always stumble over that. The Human Rights Watch has an expansive website that covers topics like free speech, health, women's rights, and the one we'll be discussing today, LGBT rights. We live in historical times for LGBT rights. It was only 3 years ago that the Supreme Court ruled in Obergefell v. Hodges that same-sex marriage is legal in all 50 states under the 14th Amendment. And if you don't know, the 14th Amendment is also known as the Equal Rights Clause because it states that all U.S. citizens have a right to equal protection under the law. We also have the First Amendment, though, which is the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion amendment. Also the freedom of assembly, if you want to gather. And some people hold the religious belief that homosexual people or LGBT people should not be married or even together. So a recent topic in LGBT politics has to deal with this religious thing. There was a Supreme Court case ruling for the case Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. In the case, 2 gay men wanted a cake made for their wedding, and they went to Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado, and the owner did not want to make their wedding cake because he didn't want to support something he didn't agree with religiously. The couple took the case to the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, and the ruling at the Civil Rights Commission was in the couple's favor. However, took it all the way up to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court ruled with the baker. And this was because when the Colorado Civil Rights Commission took the case, there was too much anti-religion in their approach to their ruling, which is a violation of the First Amendment. And I'm actually glad that this happened the way that it did for 2 reasons. One, once we start discriminating against people who discriminate against you, you're not making anything better. So I'm glad that they didn't deal with this discrimination issue by allowing the discrimination of the baker's religion. And number 2, the decision will hopefully push LGBT advocates and lawmakers to create more anti-discrimination laws, because currently only 21 states out of 50, so less than half, have anti-discrimination laws based on sexual orientation and or gender identity in public accommodations. And there's actually an awesome map that I found. I found 2 really good maps that show what states have anti-discrimination laws in different sectors like housing and employment. And the map also shows states that prohibit anti-discrimination laws from being passed for public accommodations. So government buildings like the library, public restrooms, government buildings. There are only 3 of these states. They're Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And North Carolina, you might remember if you follow LGBT politics at all, but that's where the infamous bathroom bill fiasco took place. If you don't know the story, in 2016, House Bill 2 was passed, which restricted the enactment of anti-discrimination policies in state-funded facilities. And it required transgender individuals to only use the bathroom that corresponds with the gender on their birth certificate. And it did allow for people to get their birth certificates modified, but only post-sex change operations. So for obvious reasons, that's not an option for everyone. So it was forcing transgender individuals to risk their feelings of safety, validation, and comfort to make people who were uncomfortable with their lifestyle feel better. But luckily, in March of last year, and there were a lot of reasons as well, pro and con for this. And if you have an interest in this and you haven't heard about it before, there's lots of information on the internet, and I'll post a link to some of the resources that I looked into. But luckily, in March of last year, the law was partially repealed. However, it still blocks any anti-discrimination laws from being passed until 2020. So it repealed the discriminatory law, but it also blocked any anti-discrimination laws from being passed. So it didn't allow for any further protection of these individuals. So it took something away bad, but didn't allow for anything good to happen. And in the wedding cake case, the Supreme Court wrote in its decision that a state has compelling interest in enforcing anti-discrimination laws. And I mean, of course they would. Like, you want the people in your state to be happy, even if someone has a strong moral or religious objection to serving someone because of that person's race, sex, or sexual orientation. Religion is already protected by the First Amendment, so these anti-discrimination laws would include things beyond religion, like race and sex or sexual orientation. And I think that this case, the wedding cake case, will raise more awareness of these laws, and hopefully anti-discrimination laws can start bubbling and broiling and maybe being passed and spread across the 50 states. And I really think that's the next big step in LGBT politics, because states are still trying to protect their rights to discriminate. In 2016, Mississippi enacted a law that protecting individuals who discriminate against the LGBT community based on religious convictions. And in last year in Tennessee, a law was passed permitting therapists and counselors to decline LGBT people based on solely religious beliefs. And the thing about these anti-discrimination laws is that it doesn't go both ways, because religion is protected by the First Amendment. However, religious folks don't seem to be willing, not all of them, of course, but certain religions and fanatics in extreme ways, one or the other, they're just, some people aren't willing to extend this same acceptance and tolerance that they receive in living as a citizen, as an American citizen. But why we should just discriminate against like people who deserve it, like clowns and murderers. But yeah, let's continue. In Texas last year, a law was passed that protects state-funded agencies to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and marital status. Not only does it license discrimination in adoptions and foster care services, but it also applies to Texas's family preservation and support services. So they don't want to preserve families that they don't even want to exist. I mean, right? There are similar laws in Alabama and South Dakota, and in the past week, Oklahoma and Kansas have signed laws allowing state-funded adoption and foster care agencies to follow their religious beliefs when placing children with families. So laws like these in my own country make me really sad, because members of the LGBT community are still citizens. They pay taxes to the state that fund these family services, and yet they're denied access to them and they're discriminated against. So clearly things need to change. And even though there are still a lot of challenges for the LGBT community to face, especially in the political sphere, there are good and positive changes that are occurring in the world as well. So some good news actually comes from the world of sports, where FIFA just made a no tolerance for discrimination policy for LGBT individuals. And that was after some pushback for the World Cup being held in Russia, where LGBT rights have mostly been non-existent. But the fact that they started the policy this year is really cool, and some people aren't really sure how they're going to enforce it, but I guess we will see if that ever happens. But in 2017, Virginia elected the state's first openly transgender candidate and the first in American history. And her name, or I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but they were named Danica Rowan. That could be a man's name or a woman's name, so who knows? And it doesn't matter because it's a human. Also, in 2018, the Pentagon confirmed that the first transgender person has signed a contract to join the U.S. military. And very recently, gender incongruence, which is characterized by a marked and persistent incongruence between an individual's experienced gender and assigned sex. So that used to be classified as a mental disorder, but it has been reclassified as a sexual health condition by the World Health Organization. And they think that this will help remove some of the stigma, and also it's just more factual with like the science that we have now. And the DSM-5, which is the big book of mental illnesses in the United States, doesn't classify being a transgendered individual as a mental illness, but gender dysmorphia is in there, and it's described as the presence of clinically significant distress associated with gender incongruence, which means if society can start to change and be themselves without fear, shame, or discrimination, then there would be less distress caused. No one should be discriminated against for their race or their religion, gender, or sexual orientation, and no one should be allowed to discriminate against anyone on these terms. If you want the right to not be discriminated against, then you also have to practice that equality in your life. And where you can discriminate is in your personal life. You can pick your friends, your partners, your career. You get to pick your religion, where you live, and the things that you do. And you also get to pick how you treat other people. And you get to pick whether or not you are going to accept these individuals in society. And in other areas like government, laws, schools, jobs, discrimination is harmful. And this isn't just like LGBT issues. These are like human issues, because the earth is hard enough to live on as it is. It's dangerous. There's dangerous animals, poisonous spiders, there's earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes. And we have advanced far enough to know that humans are a very diverse species in all aspects, and no matter what, a human is still a human, and we should protect and celebrate humankind in all its diversity and beauty. So I'm sorry this was a short episode. I thought it was going to be a long episode. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was reading really fast. I think the reason why I thought it would be long was because I just really lost myself in research. And in the end, I tried really hard to find positive news articles that were pertaining to LGBT issues, but it's so hard. The news is so negative nowadays that it was really difficult to find any LGBT things that were happening that were positive and progressive and awesome, and that were, in the United States. California obviously does so much for everybody, that all of its residents, and I think it's really great, and I'm happy to be a resident of California. But yeah, I think I will do some more research and hopefully get back to you guys with some really cool, positive, recent news articles, politics, things that are going on in the world that pertain to LGBT. I'm only going to do one more LGBT episode or video because I think this is the last Tuesday that's in June. I'm not quite sure. Oh, no, maybe next. I don't know. I'll have to look at a calendar. Clearly, I don't know what the dates are. But yeah, you guys should just, hopefully you learned something, and hopefully you have a little bit of a more interest in LGBT politics, because it pertains to everybody. And so go out there and change the world. Happy Pride, everyone. You can start promoting equality this month, and by going out there and being yourself. I used a lot of resources for this video. Like I said, I lost myself in research. So if you go to positivepussy.live tomorrow, this video will be up, and there will be links to articles, maps, and more. So I will see you pussies next week. where I'll tell you all about my time at SF Pride. And for now, I am me out of here.